everyone, it's Michelle. Welcome back to my channel. I am so thrilled you're here today for this very important day for me, very exciting day where I am releasing my brand new digital kits in my brand new digital store. This has been a goal of mine for going on 3 years now, and I started this kit in January, believe it or not. And then just had some technical issues and anyway, it took longer than I'd hoped, but I'm here now and that's all that matters. I have been wanting to have a digital shop for probably 2 or 3 years now, and I've been really great at finding incredible things through auctions, estate sales, flea markets, but actually getting them into the shop has been a different story. So I'm so excited that this is my first thing to share with you. Now I'm starting my shop in a way that I want to be very thoughtful about what I put in. I want it to be items, number one, that you guys can use in many projects, or I want it to be something that is just so unique and so different and just kind of gets you to make something maybe out of your comfort zone, or maybe something you haven't made before, or maybe something that pairs with a journal. And it just gives it that little extra something. So my very first project today is based on a real item that I got at the Brimfield Fair. If you're not familiar with that, it's a very famous antique fair that has been held for I don't even know how long in Massachusetts. And during COVID, they had to go online, and I was able to get this through that fair. Now, what is this? Well, this is a little bit of everything that I love. It's Victorian. It's a scrapbook. It's beautiful calligraphy. It's handmade, and it's all those things wrapped up in one, and it's a paper project. And what it is it is an antique paper handmade fan. The kind that a schoolgirl might make for a project at school, one that maybe she's just making as a gift for a friend. And when I saw this piece, I have never seen anything like it before in my life. I couldn't believe the condition it was in for being, gosh, I'm going to put it probably at the 1880s, maybe even the turn of the century, but I really think it's like 1880, 1890. And each petal on this fan has been meticulously cut out, and all of the little pieces that have been put on the fan are all antique pieces from the scrapbooking die cuts that the Victorian ladies used to get and put in their scrapbooks. And each one is hand glued on. Each petal is different. Each petal is its own scrapbook, essentially. And the writing at the center of the fan is a poem. And I wish I could tell you exactly what the poem means, but I think it's actually a riddle, and I think it has something to do with school, and I will read it to you in a moment, but it is just the most precious thing I had ever seen, and so different. Now, there was a little remnant of textile here that I had to take off in order to do this kit. But what I thought was perfect about this was that this was a paper craft project that could be done quickly, easily, and you could make a reproduction of this just using essentially some simple things you already have and 2 pieces of paper. So what I did is I took this fan apart, and I scanned each petal, and then I went in and digitally cleaned up anything that was like, bent or broken. I left a little bit of the wear in the digitals, but I went in and cleaned up what I needed to. I played with the lighting a little bit on it so that we can read this when it comes out of the printer. And this is what I ended up making from it. this is my reproduction. Now tell me that it's not close. I mean, it really came out phenomenal. I'll spread this one here so you can see. So this is the original, which is probably 130 plus years old. And this is my reproduction, which I've added some textile and some beads, and I've covered the back in wallpaper so that even the back side is pretty. And as we come into the summer months, who doesn't love a beautiful fan? And this is a beautiful fan. And I think it reproduced really, really well. And I'm so excited to bring this to you so that you can have this fan. It would be a beautiful thing to put on a table, to put in home decor, to frame, or tuck inside your own journal as a little extra something to go with a journal, especially if it's Victorian or vintage, very, antique style. And I think it looks so similar. And the original had nothing on the back, but I think it's so effective to have a beautiful back. So let me jump right in and show you the digital. Okay, so let's look at the digital kit. So the kit contains 3 sheets. The first sheet is 4 petals. And I've printed this at 100%. If you wanted a smaller size, you could play with the scale, or if you just say scale to fit, it'll be a little bit smaller than this. But this is the actual true size of the fan. And as you can see, I have scanned each image and I have cleaned things up, and it is completely ready to go. Then this is the other 3 petals. So this gives you all the petals of the fan. Now, I've also included a wallpaper that you can put on the back, which I just did double side. So I printed one side and then printed the wallpaper. So that will make this project even easier. So you get the two petal sheets, then you'll get one wallpaper scan and a second wallpaper scan. So that will give you everything you need to make the project. And if you do double-sided, you will only need 2 pieces of cardstock. The scans of the wallpaper are actual wallpaper that I had, vintage wallpaper that I scanned. So you actually get a scan of what I used in my project. This is a lot shinier in person than it is on the scan, but it's still lovely on the scan. The last piece you'll get in the kit is this piece. And this piece is so that you can reproduce this project using all sorts of things. Book pages, you could use just plain wallpaper, you could use scrapbook paper. Your imagination is the limit. And basically you can cut this out, and this can be your template for cutting out many petals. And then I've also included all of the words to the poem so that you could actually even print this off and then put that in the center, or do whatever it is, rip around it, put it on coffee dyed paper and just rip around it. It's really up to you however you want to handle it. But this will give you everything you need to make the original fan and as many fans as you want. So let's get started and I'll tell you what you need. And keep in mind, even if you don't buy this digital, you can do this project by simply cutting out a petal template of your own in whatever shape you want. So the rest of the video, if you choose not to have a digital, just make yourself a template of a shape and then we can proceed together from there. So what you'll need is the actual digital printed out on cardstock, like cardstock. And you can do that either, if you can't do double-sided, then I would print cardstock, like cardstock for all, or you could do cardstock for the petals and just a regular paper for the wallpaper. I've double-sided mine, which will make it much easier. You'll need some glue. I'm going to use art glitter glue, a distress pad with a blotter, maybe some sari silk. That's what I'm going to use. You could use ribbon or textile or whatever it is that you choose. A brad, and it could be vintage, or like I found these kind of fun ones. It's a pink one and a coppery one. You could use those. And then you can use some buttons or beads. I found these really inexpensively on clearance. They're the kind that kind of replicate the, I'm trying to think, that kind of bracelet that was popular a while ago, a Pandora, I guess. It has sort of that bigger center. I think this works really good with the fan. And I think I cut these literally for maybe $1.29 or $1.99 for a whole bunch of them on clearance. So that's really all you need, that and a pair of scissors. So let's get started. Before we get started in the project, I just want to take one moment to talk a little bit about printables and talk a little bit about your printer and getting the most out of your printables. Every printer prints differently. I have a laser printer downstairs that prints color and quality differently than my Epson Eco Tank, which is fairly brand new. And I was only using my laser a lot because I could use cardstock in it. And I really believed I couldn't use cardstock in my Eco Tank because every time I put it in, it would make this horrible sound and it would say it was jammed. And then I found a video online that said you can in fact use cardstock. The video was kind of old and it didn't pertain to my model. So I'm going to link in the bottom of this video a little video I'm going to make about how I was able to put cardstock through the Eco Tank. But what I wanted to kind of point out is in the original project, you can see that patina from age. It's a creamy, warm, yellowish patina. And the reproduction that I made using my laser definitely had that same look. But then what I noticed is when I was playing around with the settings to do cardstock on the Eco Tank, the first set I printed out came out very white, like more grays than warm, and more of a cool color print than a warm color print. Let me see if I can focus this. There we go. More of a cool color than a warm color. There's a lot of grays in here, which was not at all like the warmer color that I got from my printer downstairs. So I thought this might be how my Eco Tank was printing, but I didn't think so. So I played with my settings a little bit, and essentially all I did was take it off of printing a photo on matte paper and just told the printer I was printing on plain paper, and I got a much different result, a much warmer result, and a result I was more looking for. Same printer, same paper, only difference, as I said, printing on plain paper and a photo printing on matte paper. So it handles the ink very differently depending on what you put in. So you may need to really play around with your settings if you're not happy with the colors that come out. This is true of all digitals, not mine, not anybody else's. This is pretty much something we all go through. I will get digitals that I will see on my screen one way, and then when I print them off, they come out a different way. So just know that your own printer can come out with very different results if you just sort of play with the settings a little bit. And like I said, I will talk, if for those of you with an Eco Tank, I'll have a little video that kind of talks about how I figured out how to use cardstock in here and how to get different results on it. So let's start this project. This is one of those projects that you don't really want to think about. Let's say you've kind of lost your creative mojo, you just want to have a little fun project, something you can make in an afternoon, here it is. This is it. And it packs a big creative punch. So I'm going to grab my scissors. And I'm going to actually, I could just cut these out off camera, but what I'm going to do is start cutting them out on camera. I'll speed it up, and as I'm cutting, I will read to you the poem that goes along with this writing. Okay, so I'm going to fussy cut out each one of these petals, and as I'm doing so, I'm going to read to you the poem that is created by putting all the petals together. Each petal has a different verse of the poem, and when they're read together, it becomes this one sort of riddle puzzle. And I think it has something to do with the English language. I'm assuming it could have something to do with maybe something they did in school, and it was sort of like one of these riddle poems. It definitely has something to do with vowels. And the word that I think is at the center of this poem is beloved, without the vowels in it. And beloved is a very romantic term. And the Victorians were all about romantic poetry, and they loved riddles and puzzles and things like that. So it does all fit together. Now, I'm not going to pretend to understand this riddle. And if anybody watching or who works with this kit can exactly explain the riddle, I'd be very grateful. But here it goes. BLVD doth still puzzle me. I've looked at it mainly, as you will see. This vowel here, and again it is there. Yes, BLVD has the same vacant stare. If A has stood first, it must not come last. I cannot abandon its use in the past. To a name so important as yours seems to be, there must be an A with the BLVD. E you can't claim if it belongs to me, but I is in everything, don't you see? The I must have, I cannot slight that, while O is endless and prosy and flat. E is important now, don't you see? But for the I, you could not see me. And but for the I could not see me. I must keep the I, or where should I be? You is in beauty and constant in truth, belongs to the student as well as the youth. All seems so useful, all but the O, that leads me down deep into woe. So you see I'm adrift here on the bay. Give me more aid, and speedy I pray. On BLVD must cling to you ever. I cannot do more with it, never, no never. So as you can see, that poem was a little bit puzzling, but it definitely is about vowels and the vowels missing from the word beloved, and you'll see that when you see the writing in person. Everything from the poem to the images used in this project really makes it a good example of Victorian artwork. One other thing I want to say while I'm cutting out the petals here is if you have not double-sided your project, I think the best way to proceed would be to cut out the petals, just as we're doing, and then find the substrate that you want to put on the back, whether it's vintage wallpaper, whether it's fabric, whether it could be even a really pretty scrapbook paper. And what you'll do is you'll end up gluing each petal to the back side of whatever it is that you're choosing, and then you'll go around the outside and trim that again so that the back and the front are seamless and you have something beautiful on the back and the image on the front. Hopefully that makes sense, but if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the comments below. And just to make this video just a little bit quicker for you as the viewer, I will jump ahead to the next step since I only have a couple more petals to cut out. Okay, so now we've cut out our pieces, and as you may have seen, you know, it goes pretty quick. And if you, my recording counter had me cutting all these pieces out in about 10 minutes. So if you are a faster cutter than me, you might, you might actually do better in time. And if you have one of those scanning cuts, even better. So now that we have all the pieces, our next step is to make the little hole. Now, I can use a standard hole punch. Nope, that's not one. This is the standard hole punch. I find the hole to be a little big. First of all, it will work. Let me see if I can get that. It will work, but there's not a lot of space here, and I'm afraid that that would be too flimsy. So I'm going to actually use this smaller one that I have. Or if you have the crocodile, this one here on this side is even smaller. Let's see if I can find that right there. So I would use either that or maybe even just a small hole. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to just line it up and see if it's big enough to use with a brad. See, that's a very small hole, but brads don't need a big, no, it isn't going to be big enough. So I'm going to use the crocodile. And you can use whatever hole punch you have. And if you only have the standard one, then what I would say is maybe just move the hole up slightly so that you have a little bit more room at the bottom. Yeah, that's the right size hole. So I'm just going to go through and punch all the holes. Okay, so now that we have all these, it's inking time. I have my vintage photo, and I'm just going to go around the edge. And what that does is it gives it that Victorian patina for sure. But it also makes any edges, cutting edges that aren't completely smooth, it kind of, makes all of those little nicks forgiven. Like, for instance, I wasn't the smoothest right there. When I cut on camera, I don't, cutting, first of all, I usually take my glasses off and work really close to my face, but I can't do that on camera, so that wasn't quite as smooth as I would normally do. But see the difference between the two? It just gives it that more finished look. So it doesn't take long to go around and edge these. So let me just do that. Okay, now with all these edged, one of the things I do want is the centerpiece. I think I kind of want to blend it a little bit. So I'm just going to come in here, and if you choose, you can come in and just add a little bit of ink toward the centers lightly, just to blend it all in. It's definitely not necessary, but if you want it to look even closer to the original, you can add a little bit more patina here and there. Okay, So here is the trickiest part. So the other thing too is, do you want to put ink on the back? Oh, I guess I will, only because I think it defines it a little bit. Okay, so now the trick of this part is putting them in order. So let's see, I will follow my original. So it goes little girl, then pansy, then white moth, then horse, then butterfly, then ivy, and then the dog. And so they all get stacked on top of each other, like that. Let's move this over here. And then it's just a matter of putting the brad in. Now this is a very long brad, so I am going to actually cut it in a minute. My camera's having such a hard time focusing today. Hello, there it is. Okay. Okay, so the brad is in, so I can just go back in and just get the edges with the ink if I want. Okay, and then the final piece. Now this brad is kind of long. I'm not going to cut it yet because I want to have my tassel put on first. So what I'll do is I will get a little bit of sari silk here, and I'm going to cut I'm going to put it between the brad and the paper before I close off the brad. I'm going to probably twist it like maybe once around. Come on. Okay. I'm peeling it. And then I'm going to push that brad down just like that. See? And then on the back, I might add another piece of sari. Maybe not quite as long. Put that around it. And then I'm going to push those brad pieces closed. Let me make a little knot under that. See, I made a little knot piece there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little, I'm just going to snip those. And you could probably do it with a pair of scissors, but since I have wire cutters, I will use the proper thing. I mean, it's not very heavy metal, so you can probably just snip it with what you have. I'm just going to fold those pieces up, down. See? Just like that. So now you have some textile. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie a knot. I'm going to gather all that textile together, come around, pull it through, and make one knot. This is going to finish off the bottom. It's going to really make that tassel look more finished. And you could simply leave it like that, or you can put in a bead. So I was thinking if you didn't have beads, you could even hand stitch on a couple buttons. You know, you could put a button at the bottom. You could really be as creative as you felt. I have a little silver one, just, you know, old necklaces you can cut apart a lot of times and find these kind of beads. So I'm just going to do one simple bead on this one. On this one I did a knot, then a bead, then a knot, then a bead, then a knot. But on this one I think I might just do one. Let's see. I have one that has sparkles. That's kind of nice. So the tricky part here, of course, is trying to get all of this through. But with the bigger bezeled ones, it shouldn't be too bad. You might need a needle tool to get them all through. Let me get my little pokey tool. Couldn't put my hands on the pokey tool, but I have like this little stylus tool, like, or a embossing tool. Really anything, you could use a toothpick just to push it through. And then the last one will be the hardest because there's less room in there, but it's still not too bad because that big center bezel of this big center of the bead. I'm just going to really pull that up there. And I'm wondering if I even need to do a full knot with the other two pieces, because I don't want that knot to be bulky. So let's see. I don't even think I do. And that's it. That is the whole thing. You have this, let me move everything out of the way so that we can take a peek. So that's it. Here's the original. Here was my prototype. And here's the one we just made in less than an hour. Pretty darn cool, right? So the only variants that you see, I didn't use my art glitter glue. That would be the only variants. If you couldn't do double-sided, so see, like this fan already has the back on it. It is slightly, see, it is more loose. It still would be really beautiful tucked into a journal, slightly sticking out when you get a journal, maybe between the pages. So just double-siding thin cardstock would be really pretty, right? And then you'd have the textiles coming down the bottom. Let's see, can I zoom out at all? There I go. Ooh, there we go. So that would look really pretty in a journal. But if you wanted to make it thicker, you could get a thicker wallpaper or a thicker cardstock. If you printed it on thicker cardstock, it for sure would be heavier. I think this cardstock is heavier, but I also backed it with wallpaper. If you actually wanted to use it as a fan, then you'd want thicker cardstock, or you would want to back it with wallpaper like this one, because that does make it stronger than this one. You can see this is a lot stiffer than this is, but they're still both very beautiful. They look great in journals. You could reduce the size and make a really tiny one. Really, there's just so many things you can do with the template and just with the idea of a fan. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you'll make some fans, and if you do, please tag me. Please I want to see what you make. You guys are so creative and so, you know, you take an idea and then you guys run with it. So I can't wait to see if anybody tries this, and if you do, what you come up with. I hope you like it. Since this is my first kit, please message me if you have any issues or if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye, guys.